musicians who play by memory feel less competent? And do they feel lacking in any other area? And in this topic, we are going to examine from a very, very professional standpoint where playing by ear and playing by sight emanates from. And this is our topic for today. Some people might think that actually musicians who learned through informal practices are not competent musicians because of how, the classical musical practices tend to dominate a learning institution everywhere. Now, there are so many people, friends, who are gifted musicians, and most of them learned without having to go through any sort of formal training. And they just got the instrument, and through experimentation, imitating, they went on to becoming outstanding musicians, whom today the world recognizes as icons. If you're trained informally or you're trained formally, we must accept and respect both, because both are contributing to what we are enjoying today as music. In the book by Luce Green, the book is entitled How Popular Musicians Learn, A Way Ahead of Music Education. Now, what Luce advised is that the school music curriculum, the formal music curriculum, should build on the informal way in which people acquire musical skills and knowledge in their own time, rather than contradict them by being over prescriptive and didactic. Listen, this is a very strong statement. And so if you are a music teacher, you need to listen to this. That music education should build on the informal way of learning. And this is by incorporating things that people experience in their culture, bring them to class. And that is appreciating the informal learning practices. We're going to use only two keywords. The first one is the formal training, which in this topic, I'm going to associate it to classical musical practices. And the other aspect I'm going to look at is the informal training, which I'm going to associate with as non-classical practices or popular musical practices. This includes the indigenous musical practices. And at the end of this presentation, you will see how both formal learning, the classical musical practices, and the informal learning, the indigenous way of learning in their culture, in our own respective cultures, we'll understand how these two can be incorporated and merged, and how crucial they are, and the significant roles they play in education. Let's look at informal training or non-classical training. Learning music which is personally chosen, familiar, and which the learners, musicians, enjoy and strongly identify with. We're talking of cultural identity. From the formal way, it's being introduced to music which is often new and unfamiliar, normally chosen by the teacher. So as you teach your children those pieces, I'm not saying you don't, you have to. I do as well. I do teach children classically. But you need to know that those things are not of their culture. Those are unfamiliar things. Those songs you are teaching may be very, very strange to them. That needs to be in your mind, because that is of another culture. Now, learning by listening to recordings and copying by ear, that is informal way. Classical or formal, learning through notation or other written or verbal instructions. Let's go to the other one. Learning alongside friends through talking about music, peer assessment, listening, watching, and imitating each other, usually without adult supervision. This is where you just leave children, do what you want. Ha, they enjoy that. And if someone enters your class and you're a teacher, you find children all over the place. Friend, they are learning. That is bringing your informal teaching into the class, into the formal class, by mixing these two. The other one is learning through expert instruction and receiving adult supervision. So you need to merge these two. Assimilating skills and knowledge in personal, often haphazard ways according to musical preferences. You know, this is where learners, they come in class, musicians, they come and they find their own song which they like, and they just wanted to do it. They want to play it. But on the other side, it's all about composed music, the curriculum, or a graded syllabus. There's something you're following. So if we are to look at this from these two angles, from a non-classical and classical music, from informal and formal, we will understand and appreciate each other. So classical musicians, they attach greater relevance to more serious musical activities, which includes engaging in mental rehearsals. And sometimes children might not like reading music. You might actually kill that in children. There are some children who really don't like reading music today. They just want to play by memory. So it's really tough to teach children today. And you have to incorporate these two methods, the informal and formal. So when you look at these two musicians' friends, one who plays by memory and one who plays by sight, we must take into account their cultural musical practices and the way they were trained. Because the world now thinks that the classical musical practices is the only dominant musical practices, many musicians have also neglected their cultural musical practices, the indigenous way. But of course, you'll find that it's dominating in most learning institutions. It's not bad. But as a teacher, what I'm saying is bring those experiences from their children's way of life, bring them to class and incorporate them into your formal or classical way of teaching music. Then you have fun. As we have seen that classical musical practice involves scores, reading music, and that is the way also teaching is done. And you will find that most of them, they possess that skill of reading, playing by sight. It's because of the classical way of training. People want to train through a book. It's a book in front. And on the other hand, an African indigenous way of musical practice, much is done by ear. Whether you play by ear, you play by sight, we cannot say the other one is better than the other. No. But listen to the last words. When one goes through formal training, the expectations are that one should acquire the ability to read musical notation and understand the basic music rudiments because of the classical way of doing things. You need to read music. You need to learn by score. There is always something in front. Now, as a teacher, listen to this. Reading music is expected. You can't compromise. Should a musician who play by memory feel less competent? The answer is no. They should feel accomplished in their own way, while adhering to their cultural musical practices as well. Does it matter whether you play by memory or sight? The answer is, it doesn't really matter. However, based on the expectation, the role you find yourself in, this might matter. So reading or lack of reading music does not define who is competent musician and who is not. Every musician belongs to a different culture, and each culture have got a different musical practices through which they learn and they pass knowledge. Culture plays a significant role in musicianship. And this has to be respected without having to value the other musical culture as special or dominant. So don't forsake your musical culture, friends, your roots. by adopting others, but keep learning and grow as a musician by learning from other musical practices. We are all musicians in our own way. We were trained differently and we are competent differently. So the informal way and the formal way plays a significant role in musicianship.
You may be a music teacher, a musician, a school administrator, a parent, a music student, or even a music fan. Join John Chitambo, an accomplished international music educator, on an enriching online live stream show, Ask John, a community educational program where music-related issues are addressed. Every Sunday from 6 p.m. to 6:45 p.m. Malaysia time. That's 12 p.m. to 12:45 p.m. Central Africa time. Venue, JC Music Education, Facebook page. Don't miss out.